Okay, I have a meeting here in, I don't know, a little, a little bit, but wanted to do this Ask HershNoeie. I have a lot of videos. They're just sitting around hanging out, but I need to upload them. Some are uploaded and some are not. So I gotta do a better job of that. But anyhow, be sure to join the Discord down in the description box below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. This Ask HershNoeie is going to be controversial, I think. I wanted to write to you because, and this is going to be a long email. So he he writes off, I wanted to write to you because, comma, this is a long email. Recently, I met someone who also is going through a similar situation. I tried to warn him not to go down this path. I am 50 years old, so I'm not quite young, and I got into a relationship with a woman who had 2 kids prior to meeting me. I was with this woman when the kids were younger, and one was a teenager and the other one was just under being a teenager. Prior to meeting her, another one of my friends had dated a lady that had 1 child. And he told me never get into a relationship with a woman that has a child. I'd never had any kids and I never really cared to have any kids, but it wasn't a big deal if someone did have kids. It's always been my philosophy. After meeting with, there's a lot here, so I'm trying to read it correctly. So he goes on to say, how I met my ex was basically at a bar, and we struck up conversation. She had a lot of interesting things to say. We went on a few different dates, and before you know it, we were happily dating. It took a while before I got to see the kids, and she made it a point that she loved her kids, but sometimes she wished that they had better guidance. I had asked where the father was, and she said not in their life. And to be honest with you, during the entire time I was with her, I never even heard or seen this person. Furthermore, she never really talked about the father of the children, and I don't know if it is 1 father or 2 fathers, to be honest with you. It was a topic that she never really discussed. When we were dating, her whole point was that she was looking for companionship. She didn't want to be single forever, and she wanted a man that was understanding and loving, but understood that her children come first. Now, fast forward, throughout this entire time, I felt like a lot of this was just a burden on me. She basically worked infrequently. Sometimes the jobs were minimum wage jobs, which, okay, that's fine. But the vast majority of all of her bills, raising the kids, and all those expenses fell on to me. Sure, I knew what I was walking into, but she had told me that she was not looking for someone to be a dad to the kids. And we were not married. When the kids both were adults, she basically was growing distant and distant and distant. This happened when the youngest one was about 17. Whenever we would argue about some of the smallest little things, she would pack up and leave. She would go wherever she goes, and then she would come back later on. I never quite knew where she actually went. Sorry. Clicked on a video. I have 2 screens here, and so I clicked on the thing. I was trying to scroll down. But anyway, you guys don't care. I never quite knew where she went. And later on, I found out that she would go over to her family's house. I noticed that her family, which had a close relationship with me when we were dating, started to grow distant over time with me. To make a long story short, later on, she told me that she felt like we had just grown apart and that there was no more room for us in this relationship. This was after I had spent a good 8 years of my life with this lady who said that she never wanted to get married, which is true, but she lied and said that this was going to be a relationship where she just wanted a companion, someone who could be a lifetime friend but yet I was basically the pseudo father. Once I was able to raise the children financially, she basically left me. I'm writing this to basically say men should not be with women who have children, and even vice versa, because it only leads to more issues. I was never able to discipline the children. I wasn't able to actually do much with them, even by myself. I had to literally do things with them on her schedule. I was simply there for a bank. What are your thoughts? Okay. Well, it's interesting because, I saw a post that was done, and these were women from another country. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of where. And I would say 100%, or let's say 95% of the women in there have children. And they're single parents. Okay? 95%. And this is not a slam on people who are single parents. My mom was a single mother. She had been married to my dad for 30-something years. And she had had my oldest sister, and then my sister that passed away, and then my sister that's next in line to me. They adopted, our niece, and then, who's older than me, and then there was me. I was kind of the oops. I was the makeup. Things still didn't work out, and so they had gotten a divorce a little bit before I was born. So I was born as my parents were getting a divorce. But she was a single mother. One of the things my mother never, ever did was get remarried. And she never dated anyone. Now, my mother was born in 1932. It's a different caliber of people back then versus today. But she never did. And her thing was she never wanted to have another man in the house where they're not his kids and the risk of him abusing the kids or doing something to the kids. She didn't want that. She also did not want to go against her religious views. Her views were, and she always wore her wedding ring, even to her death. And my dad died back when I was 16. My mom died in 2019. She wore her ring all the way, and I'm 44 now. She wore her wedding ring for 40-something years, even though she wasn't married. Because to her, in God's eyes, she was always married to the same, she was married to my dad. No matter what we do on paper, in her eyes, before God, they were still married. Now, my dad went on and remarried and did all that. But to my mother, she was saying, I am still married. I have kids with this person. And that's it. She put her energy into raising kids. That doesn't happen too much nowadays. Nowadays, you have a way different generation. And it is where you have a lot of people who will have kids by multiple different people and want to get into a relationship. Okay, whatever. But one of the things my mother even told me is never get with a woman who already has a pre-made family. Never. Now, this was a woman who lived that life of being married, having kids, divorced with those kids, who said never get into a relationship as a man. Never get into a relationship with a woman who already has a pre-made family, because it's never going to work out well for you. Now, there may be people where it does work out, and we have people in our family where that worked out. But she said no. The struggle is going to be very real, because I don't know if she was thinking of it from the standpoint of what you went through. But her thing was that you always have several different dynamics at play. Not only are you trying to fit into this gray area, disciplining the kids, that's going to be an issue. The kids talking back, you're not really a real father. There's a bunch of things. Kids not liking you. And if you have different fathers, you're going to have to deal with them. You're going to have to deal with her and, him talking and all this other type of stuff. And it's like, why do that when you can be with someone that has no kids and there's no baggage? My mama was like, it's different if you have kids and you get with someone and they have kids, that might be different. But when you don't have any obligations whatsoever, why sign up to take care of someone else's kids? And that stuck with me. Now, I did date people who had kids. I dated one person, I believe, that had kids. But as far as that going, and they were older kids at that, they were getting close to being adults, right? But as far as if that relationship would have gotten more serious, it wouldn't have. That's a fact. It wouldn't have. And the reason why it wouldn't have is because A, me and this lady were not that compatible, but B, what my mother said made a lot of sense to me. And what I want young black men to do is, and young men in general, is to think about that. A lot of times people will say, and even in that group, a lot of the dudes were saying, yeah, I don't mind being with a woman with kids. I don't mind. A lot of these guys in here aren't real men. And there was a lot of women who had kids in that group who were single moms upset that there was a guy who said he would not date or be with a woman who have kids. And they were upset with him because they felt slighted. Even though they may not have been interested in him, it was kind of like, you know, you're judging me. But you got to understand that it's okay for a person not to want to have extra stuff in their life. Just like there are people who, again, there are plenty of women who don't mind telling you, I don't want to be with a man that has kids, or a man that's 5'3". I'm not doing that. So, and people are like, yeah, girl. But a man can't say the same thing. I don't want a woman with kids. It's ridiculous. So, to me, it's an added set of situations and circumstances. Relationships are hard to begin with. Take it from someone who has been in various different relationships with various different types of people, and 99.9% of those relationships I were in with people, never did they have kids. Right? Never did they involve kids. Because, no, there was two people. One was much early on. And, you know, my kids come first. I'm like, of course they do. That makes sense. But when you start to basically just be a bill, like, you know, the person that pays all the bills and that's it. Or you have situations where women are like, I don't want any more kids. You know, I got enough. But it's like, but then how is that my problem? I want to have my own kids. And it's like, okay. Nothing against the men who do that. There are a lot of men who successfully get into relationships with women who have kids, and they take that on, and I salute them. But that doesn't make them any more of a man than a man who does not want to be with a woman who has kids. It doesn't. It just means that I don't want that extra situation. Right? I don't want that. And likewise, if God forbid something happens between Noelle and I wouldn't necessarily get with another woman. I mean, I'm not going to get with a man. But I'm saying, like, I'm not going to necessarily be in another relationship like that. Right? I'm just not. I mean, to me, it's like once you have children, it's a completely different, in my view, in my opinion, it's a completely different thing. I'm looking for the health, well-being, and safety of my kids. That comes first. If God forbid something happens between Noelle and I don't anticipate that happening ever. But that's my main concern, is my kids. Number one is always going to be the safety, welfare of my kids. And so that means that I don't necessarily want someone that, you know, I'm dating or what have you to necessarily be around my kids. Knowing that, that means I'm going to be if something happens to us, I'll just be a single man. Now, once my kids become adults or something, that might be different. But as long as they're kids, no. And Noelle has expressed similar statements that she wouldn't be with anybody. And then once let's say the kids become adults, the next person she would be with would probably be black. Why? Because of the simple fact the children's father is. See what I'm saying? And probably the same for me. If something happened between us, I would probably get with someone who would also be Korean or something like that as well. Why? Because that's part of my kids. You see what I'm saying? Like, to some people that doesn't make sense. No, that's stupid. But to me, it's important because I want my kids to understand the black side of who they are, no matter the circumstances. So if they're home with me, they get in that. If they were to go visit their mom or whatever, then they're going to get that too, because the person that she's going to be with is probably going to be black, 99% chance. And the same thing goes for me, is that I want my kids to be, not saying that it's a replacement, but it's similar. The kids are like, yeah, you know, they could talk about like in, you know, bok choy and, they can talk about kimbap and different things that they like, you know, and so it's something that is understood. You know, my kids, Zoe especially, loves different types of kimchi, even the hottest stuff she likes. Stuff like that. There is a cultural understanding. So for me, that's going to always be the case. And for her, it's going to be similar. She wants someone who understands a black man's perspective. Nobody else on the planet can do that other than another black man, period. So is that limiting? Okay, cool. See, I don't need to live the rest of my life with someone if her and I don't work out. I don't need that. See what I'm saying? Like, I'm still going to have fun in life. I'm still going to, you know, travel with my kids and do different things. Like, I'm cool. But I understand how some people can feel like, well, dang, so it's over for me? No, I think that people who have kids, it's not necessarily over for them, but I think that they have to understand that it's not, some people, especially women, feel entitled that, you know, I'm the prize. Even though you got like 3-4 kids, you're not. That's a lot for anyone to kind of take under their arm. And also, my mama kind of made the statement too that you're going to be nothing more than a paycheck. For some of them, not all, but for some people, it's going to be nothing more. You're only there to help take the burden off of the mom. Because sometimes, you know, if the guy is nowhere around, like what was in your circumstance, he's not paying anything. And you're basically the cleanup crew. No. No. And that's another reason why I tell young black men, or the ones that I've been working with, is always use protection. I think I've said this before. Always use protection. If you're dating someone, I don't care how long you've been dating, always use several different forms of protection, because having a child is a massive responsibility, and you don't want to just have a child with anyone. With anyone. There's certain telltale signs that you can get from a person that's going to tell you exactly how they are. And you don't want someone who's really got this grandiose view of themselves, who are very much about them, I, that doesn't want to accept accountability, or that doesn't want to accept responsibility, because they're going to put all the accountability and responsibility and everything else on you. You see what I'm saying? Because they're never going to absorb any of that. It's always someone else's problem or someone else's fault. Don't be with those types of people. There's literally, and it's great now, there's more stuff that's coming from men's point of view. Because women can tell you all day long about men, and it doesn't matter. You're not a man. It's just like, I can't sit here and tell you about, you know, like, you know, what women need to do and what women should do, and, you know, guys, you know, women, this, that. I don't really know. To be honest with you, I'm not a woman. I'm a man. I can tell you exactly what a lot of men don't want. And a lot of young men may be confused on, because there were times when I was definitely confused. Like, I don't know, maybe, you know, maybe I can make this work, or maybe I can, but it's like, you can't. You should never, ever jeopardize your own happiness, sanity, peace for someone that's just not there yet. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter what race the person is. It doesn't matter what race you are. I don't even know what race this person is. It doesn't matter. It's a situation where if you are a young man or old man, getting with someone that has kids is something that I would advise against. Now, I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but I would advise against. I've seen where it's always been this point of contention. You know, I know someone that had a child by someone who had kids by someone else. They were married to someone else, didn't work out, they had kids. It's a little bit different scenario than someone that never was married, but they got kids, and different kids from different fathers and different things like that. It's a little different. But still, he always struggled because he could discipline his kid and take his kid to different things and do different things, but then the other kids kind of feel slighted. Like, well, why aren't we hanging out? Or the other kids get to go spend time with their dad and they go to Disney World, but his kid, not so much. It's crap like that that's just not, I don't want to deal with that. And when you're coming up as a young man, there's too many other things in life that you got to put your attention onto versus someone that already has a family. At the end of the day, the person that has the greatest chance of getting cut out of the situation will be you. The mom's not going to cut the kids out. I mean, there's some cases where that happens. But a good mom's not going to cut the kids out just for the sake of you. They're not, and why would you want that? That would be the worst person to be with if they did. So for me, instead of and I know that I need someone that's going to be a part of the relationship as much as I want them to, and all of that, and that there's a certain level of comfort, and that can be hard. Now, some people will say a real man's going to be with a woman no matter what. Okay, that's cool. That's just not the type of man that I am. I can be a fake man, or a little man, or a weak man, or whatever you want to call it. I don't really care. The reality is I decide who it is I want to be with. Just like with any man, you decide who you want to be with. Make sure that you use protection. It would be the foolish thing of not using protection. And if they tell you, oh, well, I'm already on some sort of birth control and I have the shot, or I, whatever, cool, that's great. But for my own safety, because it's not just about pregnancy. You don't know. My mama said this too. You can be married to someone for 40 years and still not know them and not know everything about them. That's very true. Very true. There's things. Noelle told me a story the other day about hers. I'm not going to repeat it. It's funny. It's probably embarrassing. She probably doesn't care. But it's really embarrassing when she was a little bit younger. What happened? I never heard that story. It was the funniest thing in the world, right? There's stories I have that she doesn't know about that's kind of equally embarrassing, right? That's just an example. That's a small example. It's not a big deal. But other people have big skeletons in their closet, and it's like, you may never really know. So given that, it's already, there's a lot of different ups and downs, peaks and valleys in any sort of relationship. You throw kids into the mix, and they're not your kids of your own is already rough. It's rough. But it feels good for me to go, like the other day, I took all my girls out on a daddy-daughter date. Instead of each individually, I took them all out. And I said, just choose whatever you want. When we went to the restaurant, just pick whatever you want. Pick whatever. Doesn't matter. Right? Because it felt good to say, yep, these are my girls. They look like me. You know, like I can tell. That forehead, you can't. This right here, the forehead and the eyebrows. I can tell. That's what I always tell people. So it's like, all my kids, I'm able to literally just be able to be a part of their life and spend money on them and have our private, unique time and all this. We're going to go to the Kids Museum, but it was closed. That was great. Rode the train, did all the things that they like to do. They took pictures and played around, and we toured our own city, that type of thing. It was great. I don't know how comfortable I would be with another man's child or children doing the exact same thing. Because if Zara fell down and hurt her knee, not a big deal. Noelle's not going to sit there and investigate everything. She knows that Zara's pretty clumsy. She fell down and hurt her knee. If I'm with, Jacqueline, and Jacqueline has 3 kids, and, Bonnie fell down and hurt her knee, then it could be an issue there. Well, why did she fall down? Or maybe the mom's like, cool, but the dad's like, he ain't watching the kids, that's why they fell down. It's that type of dynamic. It's just, no, it's not worth it. Or the fact that, dad comes pick up the kids, and, I've seen where you have, I remember a guy, I was sitting down with a friend of mine and his girlfriend. She had kids. And the guy that she had kids with had called while she was out to dinner with all of us, but with her boyfriend. And he had the kids. And one of the kids said that I'm always so hungry. Because, kids will say stuff like, well, I'm hungry. I'm always hungry. And so I assume the dad was like, don't you get fed, or whatever the case may be. And the kid was like saying something about how they wanted to, the way that he explained it later, my friend was like, the kid wanted a bunch of nothing but just snacks and chips. And he was like, no, you need to eat actual food, and was going to prepare them actual food. And the kid said, I don't want it. And pushed it away. I wanted chips. I want chips, and wouldn't eat. And, you're not feeding me. Well, then I guess the kid must have told the dad that, and the dad already is going to be a little butthurt because, the woman that he has kids with is with some other guy. So dude calls up while she's there on her date talking about, oh, well, he doesn't even take care of the kids. You with this guy, and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other. So she's like, I never even heard that he didn't feed the kids. We always take care of. So then when he was going to drop the kids off, she goes out there because he didn't want to come inside and it would be an issue. But we could see. And of course, he's hugging her and got his arm kind of down by her hips and, talking to her and everything, but keeping his hands off some, but then kind of touchy-feely and hugging. And it's a low hug. It's not necessarily like on the butt, but like kind of low. And it's just stuff like that, where it's kind of this little, here's the line, and this is stepping over the line. He's stepping on it, basically. Because if he says, well, I didn't like the fact that he was trying to hug onto your butt. Oh, you jealous? Like, why are you upset? That's my kid's father. He's going to always be a part of our lives. He's going to be this. He's going to be that. And he wasn't doing anything disrespectful and blah, 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 blah. And it's important for the kids to see us getting along. That's just too much for me to deal with. It's too much. And I often tell young black men this specifically. Sometimes the juice is not worth the squeeze. It's not worth it. Why go through all of these other hoops and valleys, and I got to jump up and down and all of this when you don't have, there's option B or C or D where you don't have to deal with any of that. There's no point in that's one of the areas that I talk about. Like for me, it was a non-negotiable. If you have kids, not doing it. If you didn't go to college and graduate, not doing it. That was for me. That was just, I wanted someone who was similar. I didn't have any kids. I had went to college and graduated. I wanted someone who complimented me. They didn't have to have, 30 degrees. But I wanted them to at least be able to say, this is what I've accomplished. And it's not something that's thrown up in people's face. Well, I have a this and I have a that. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what type of person you are. How do you handle situations? I don't care about, I'm beautiful and this, that, and the other. And, I put on 40 pounds of makeup. And, of course, you can make anybody look great. I mean, I'd look like, I don't even know. But I'd look a hell of a lot better than I do now if I had makeup. So you can do that with anybody. I don't care about that. I don't care about any of the other things, or I make, $150,000 a year. That's cool. But tell me more about how you handle situations. Tell me about, I ask questions to see if a person holds accountability. Somehow I make it where we talk about their previous relationship and ask questions, because it is important. How did that go? And if all of it is just painting that person as he's all of these things, and I never hear them take any accountability other than I was a fool for choosing him, then it's like, yeah, you're not for me. Because that can't be right. That can't be accurate. I'm not doubting that a lot of the things mentioned weren't true, but what about you? What part did you play? It's typically 50-50. Rarely do you see a situation where the man is not 100% the problem. It just isn't reality. So for me, it's like, I want to know more about you. And I've had women come and basically left nothing to the imagination in terms of their top, or, you know, the skirt was so low that you literally saw everything. And already I'm like, this ain't gonna work. But I'll sit here and kind of just, you know, use this as a what's it called? Experience, to gain more experience in the dating aspects. But this ain't gonna go far. You already showed me what I don't like. Or something that, and people say, you're jaded. Not really. These are kind of basic things to me. So, or if there's like a bunch of tattoos all here, 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 I can't do it. Now, some dudes, it's not a problem. But I'm saying for me, right? For me, there's certain things that I just would not, and there's others. But I think for each guy, that's kind of a personal preference or choice. There are certain things that are non-negotiables, in my opinion. Not accepting accountability, basically is quick to judge and shame people, talking about people all the time, puts a tremendous amount of effort into what their appearance looks like, meaning that all they do is take pictures of themselves and glam up and take pictures all the time. It's not really something that you should want to be around, in my opinion. It's probably not going to be a good thing. Especially if they're not a professional model. If they're a model, that's a different story, right? That's what they do. Because a lot of times they're trying to see what would be their best pose or their go-to pose, and that's different. But for somebody that isn't, it's like, really? And Instagram doesn't count. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not, yeah, you may be an Instagram model, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a model that has an actual contract. That's different. Someone that has kids, not going to do it. For me, it's just not. Right? Hold on one second. Oh, okay, I'm back. But, so those are important to me. I also will tell you to never be with a person who is going to demonize people who are different than them or of their own race. For example, this goes for anybody. If you're dating someone of another race and they down, let's say that you are a white chick and you're dating a black dude and he does nothing but talk about, well, I don't date black women because, you know, this, that, and the other, they got this and their attitude, then that's not the person you should be with. Now the cat's going to keep meowing. This cat is so vocal. So if you hear a cat like howling, he's fine. He does that because the other cat's just not coming to him. But yeah, and likewise, if you're with a black woman and all she does is, and you're a white guy or whatever, and all she does is talk trash about black men and black men ain't this, and a good black man's a dead one, even though she's talking about herself too, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't have a black father that got your black mother pregnant. But anyway, besides the point, let's not split hairs here. Then don't be with that type of person. If you are, it says a lot about you. You can't no longer just point the finger at that person saying she's just toxic or he's just toxic or he's just whatever. You got to point the finger at yourself for accepting that foolery, right? So that, to me, there's certain things that I'm like, Now, with that said, not everyone will agree, and that's okay. For some people, dating someone who has kids, male or female, not a big deal for them, and that's okay. But I would probably say, similar to you, it's not a... Kids are expensive. Take it from someone I do fairly well financially. And we have 3 kids, and it's expensive. It's expensive. I mean, just going to get little pizza slices. They get a little pizza, pizza All three of them. I got me a little small pizza, which is about this big, which I should have just got one big slice because it was about the size of that little bitty small personal pizza. That and some, what was it, three wings. So over $60. Now, granted, that's here on the West Coast in Tacoma. It's expensive, but that's $60. And that was just lunch. It's expensive. It's very expensive. Depending upon where you are, it's worse. But yeah. And so to take that on when you didn't have the fun of creating the kids, but you're taking on the responsibility, okay. But to me, it's not a go for me. It's not an option. People may say it's weak. They may claim it's a lot of things, and that's okay. One of the things I want young black men to understand is, and just in general, when people name call you or whatever, or try to shame you, it's just more of a reflection of what you don't need or want in your life. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's not, you don't want, and I could say for young black women too, like if you got someone, all they do is shame and all this disrespect, why? Like, why? That's just not the person me personally, I just can't be with someone like that. I have to be with someone who's at least somewhat of a positive person, nice, genuine person. These are the qualities. Don't look on the outside so much. Sometimes, especially younger men, the visual, it's just like, ooh, she's got that, she got that. That's the last, at the very end of everything. People say, well, there's got to be a physical attraction. Sure, I agree with you. But that only goes so far. Don't let that override certain things. Sometimes all the red flags are there and men are like, yeah, but, you seen that booty? Yeah, but, man, look at her face though. Yeah, but, like, she's already been flirting and I think she's going to be, nasty, a little bit of a freak. So I don't know. That type of stuff is stupid. That's stupid. You can find anyone that does that. But finding someone who's a quality person, who's going to be a great mother, a great life partner, all of these different things, that's a lot harder. Someone that's really worth your time. And that window of women who are worth your time is not as big as you think. It's pretty narrow, to be honest with you. There's a lot of people that would be great moms. No question. Great moms, no problem. Being a great fit, great partner, it's very narrow. It's very narrow. And the same thing for men. Great men, it's a very narrow thing. It is. Especially the ones that are available now. All the ones that are married, well, I mean, there you go. There's a reason why they're married. Same thing with the women. There's a lot of them. Now, there are some people who are married and it ain't going to work out. I'm not counting those. I'm talking about the ones in long-term, long-lasting relationships and marriages. It's because they found their person. They complement each other very well. They handle the situation very well. Everything is perfect. And I know people who have, again, person had a kid and they got with someone. It typically is the mom. Had a kid. The guy didn't have any kids. And they end up having kids later together. One kid together. In both circumstances, it was one kid. And those men were okay with that. They were okay with that. And in the one circumstance, the one dude, his woman's kid was a teenager. So in both circumstances, they were teenagers. So they didn't have too much farther to go. But it's one of those dynamics that is not going to be for everyone. And it does, and with those guys, it did add a lot of pressure. Because they secretly would tell you, yeah, it's tough, it's rough. Because of this. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, but there's a lot of other. Would I prefer her not to have kids? Yes. But the fact that she has kids, it made everything great too. There's going to be a lot of that. Me, it's a no. Tell me what you guys think. Be sure to join the Discord down in the description box below. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.